Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. Tonight, we are going to be joined by the brothers Goodberry, two of the most famous combinations of Bills and Bengals fans in one brotherhood. But first, our guys from Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my very merry partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I missed you on Christmas Eve. I dropped in for a minute, but we had some weird lag, so I didn't want to throw things off further by hanging out further, and I probably wouldn't have been appropriate for most of what I would have stayed on for, but welcome. How was your Christmas?
Weird, but from the sounds of what you went through after Christmas Eve, I'm actually glad that I missed your Christmas Eve. It sounded like your whole family got sick, which I'm sorry that happened here this past weekend.
Wasn't great.
And then we were buried in snow here throughout Christmas. So Christmas Eve got a little bit sketchy.
How's your back?
Honestly, I want to take a second because we were very much on the lucky side of the storm. We were right in the thick of the band here in the North Towns, and our power went out for about 6 hours, and that was sketchy enough. And we dealt with plenty of snow, but there was people that were without power for days, without access. People weren't getting to them. So anyone that was impacted by this storm here this past week and over the holidays, my heart goes out to you. It's an absolute terrible storm. My family was very lucky. We lost the power for 6 hours on Christmas Eve. We're trying to watch Christmas Vacation on an old laptop with like a DVD player, because just trying to keep the kids occupied. And then luckily, dude, it was such a weird day. Friday, the storm's rolling in. I had plumbing issues. I think I told you I had emergency plumbers up to the house an hour before the storm rolls in. Storm rolls in, power kicks out for 6 hours or so. And my wife and I are trying to track the power on National Grid and what's going on. And we had seen some message that they were done for the night. Like they're pulling National Grid units. It's going to be out for the night. If you lost power and they haven't assigned anyone, you're done. So we were like, shoot, making plans to scramble. We weren't going to have power for the whole night. And literally like 25 minutes after that message came out, power clicked back on. So they must have been working on us. We just got in before they called it for the night. And so Christmas went off pretty normal for us outside of that. But what a crazy storm. I've never seen anything like it, Greg. I shared with you some of the videos and stuff. Still, people are still digging out, but now it's going to be like 40 to 60 over the next week here, and it's all going to melt and flood my basement. So that'll be the next catastrophe that I deal with.
So first, before we get into all the football, just a quick couple notes on what Aaron said. Shout out to all the emergency workers, police, firemen, all the people working the plows and trying to get stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, so many long hours, so many crazy things. I know we only heard a few of them, but we heard a couple of the awesome stories. And I know the one that I was able to share, just a very short one. Shike that brought in the gentleman who was the worker at the Northtown at the theater. I apologize.
Northtown Theater. Yeah,
I think so.
North Park, maybe.
North Park. There we go. North Park Theater. And that was literally out in the snow and likely going to be it may not make it through the night if her and her boyfriend hadn't found him. That was an amazing story. And I know there's tons more that didn't get the publicity that one did. So just shout out to so many people that helped others survive through this and to go through there. And I know everybody kind of thought it was going to be bad. I know no one thought it was going to be that bad. That was crazy. And something that a lot of people I respect and a lot of people who are not prone to hyperbole said it was like nothing I had ever seen. It was the worst storm I had ever seen. Things like that, like from people who are not prone to that kind of thing. So
I like to think I don't like to think I don't live in the moment on stuff and like everything's the greatest or the best. And I mean, I've been alive for almost 40 years now, and I've seen some weather. Like I've lived in New England, Buffalo, my whole life, Northeast, and I've seen some big weather events. Ice storm in '98 was a big one. I've never seen anything quite like this. And to tell you the truth, I think it's part of the problem too is access to information. My wife and I were heartbroken throughout the storm. Like, we were getting notifications on our Ring of some of the situations that people were in, like looking for help. And I wanted to even help. Like, one lady needed gas and I had gas. And in that heat of the storm, she was like 3.5 miles away, and there was absolutely no way to even get 3 miles. And it doesn't feel far. You can see on the map how far they are away from you. And that was probably the most heartbreaking. I was struggling to keep my neighbors' vents clear to like get across the street and help out neighbors and stuff like that. So that's probably the hardest thing is you knew people that needed help, there was no way to get to them. And it lasted for days. And that's just a really sad thing. Hopefully that is the once in a lifetime generational thing that they made it out to be, because I don't want any more of that smoke at all.
Yeah, so we won't drone on about that, for the whole show, but just wanted to take a moment. I know there are people, like you said, literally still digging out. Some, I think, maybe still without power.
I think there's still some power outages there.
Like that. So every one of those situations, I hope things clear up as soon as possible. I hope everyone was able to have as close to a normal Christmas as possible. I know a lot of people listening weren't able to. As I was telling Aaron and Chris, our producer, beforehand, my family did our Christmas morning this morning because we were able to. We live in my family's from the southern tier down the Jamestown, Chautauqua Lake area. So we had really bad weather, but not the dangerous stuff that you guys had. It was still 50, 60 mile an hour winds, -20, but we had like 6 to 8 inches. So it was just miserable, not dangerous. We survived through that, got to do a lot of our family events. I got to see my grandma, I got to see a lot of my family members. And then somehow we all got home and got the flu. So we were then miserable for 2 days. So we did our Christmas morning this morning. So it was crazy, all kinds of crazy stuff. But hopefully everyone was able to get themselves back to normal and have a Merry Christmas. We were talking.
We thought 2020 was going to be our weirdest Christmas, Greg, and look at us.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, look at us. Look what we did. So we will be welcoming Glenn and Joe Goodberry on the show in just a few moments here, but we had a couple things we want to go over before they jump on with us. And, one is the weather is looking at this now is that weirdly the Bills have gone through, I think we joked last year about what an anomaly we thought it was with the bad weather. And it's somehow been worse this year with just ridiculously bad weather over and over and over again, whether needing to move the game that ended up being played in Detroit that, wasn't played in bad weather, but was significantly impacted. Then 3 straight games of actual bad weather. Then now in a spot where going to Cincinnati on Monday night, I can't lie, I was nervous. Hey, Zach, signed up as a new premium member and got our shirt for Christmas. So
hey,
nice.
Thanks.
So I was nervous and started looking at the, forecast for Cincinnati on January 2nd, especially at night and everything there. I think it's going to be like 54 and cloudy. Like I
Cincinnati's like basically Kentucky, right?
Yeah, it's Kentucky border, the very southernmost part of Ohio. But I will say they get winter and they get snow. Like it's not Tuscaloosa. It's not like Alabama where someone in Cincinnati can say they've seen snow and they can mean it. So I wasn't ready for that. I don't know how the Bills are going to act with 54 and cloudy.
Well, hopefully we see exactly what you're supposed to see, which is an explosion from this offense. I think that some of the frustration that the offense has actually done pretty well over the last few weeks. And I think DVOA shows that the offense is doing fine. But I think there's been, for instance, a lot of discussion about why hasn't Stephon Diggs been getting the targets and things like that. And I think the offense can play more true to itself when the elements are more favorable, at least, which I think 50-degree football weather is much more favorable than what they faced over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think obviously there's a huge difference in what they've been dealing with. We'll still have to look. I know there's a possibility, I think I saw, of some rain. It's supposed to be earlier in the day. It's not supposed to be all the way out into the game. But there was a possibility of rain. I didn't see anything as far as nasty wind or anything like that. So we'll watch. It may not be perfect, but it's certainly going to be much, much better than what we had seen the last couple games. So I do expect things to go. And I will say this game is one where I don't know that they're going to be able to lean on the defense and the running game. I think they're going to need to outscore this Cincinnati team. I know that there's been a lot of time and energy spent on, is this run defense up to snuff, and is our run offense getting back to where it is? This week is going to be a test in the opposite direction. This week is going to be a test. Hey, can our passing offense get clicking and go shot for shot with an explosive, hot passing offense? And is this passing defense, which myself and others have touted as one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, are this version of Trey White and whatever that rotation of Kaiir Elam and Dane Jackson, are they ready for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? This is going to be the most challenging test, because I think they're actually even more of a challenge than even what a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are, who are horrifying from a speed standpoint. But you now get both, where you get the crazy explosive plays and an amazing jump ball contested catch guy, where, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle don't have the, hey, we're open when we're not open thing. T. Higgins has that. And then you also get the, Jamar Chase is horrifying over the top. Yep. So this is going to be an awesome test of, is this pass offense and pass defense everything that we think it is, and ready to show that on a national stage?
So real quick, I just looked up the weather on weatherunderground.com, which is what I prefer to use here. And so far for Monday night, they are calling for light showers, so like 0.01 inch an hour throughout the game. So wet, misty in 50 probably, but wouldn't think that impacts anything. But yeah, to your point, Greg, I don't know. I think we need to probably set what those expectations should be for a game like this. When you're talking about, their offense is one of the top passing offenses in the NFL, and the Bills have one of the top passing defenses. The offense tends to still win that matchup more times than not. Like, the NFL is designed that way. It's going to favor
the Bills offense has done that against good pass defense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when you look at some of these matchups on an individual level, like I'm with probably everybody in Bills Mafia that is not feeling great about Dane Jackson with T. Higgins and jump ball situations, right? Like, we've seen the film. We've seen Dane Jackson struggle in those types of situations, and we've seen the Bengals pick on teams that aren't able to do anything about that, right? And so I think that setting the expectations of what stopping the Bengals or going toe-to-toe with this Bengals offense is important, right? I think they're going to probably score over 20 points. I think that they're going to move the ball. They're going to be some of those frustrating 20, 30-yard jump ball catches. There's going to be some times where Jamar Chase burns a guy. It might be a Trey White. It might be a Dane Jackson. They're going to win some plays. They're probably going to win, on average, just like the rest of the NFL, 60% of them, right? Sure. Like, Joe Burrow's probably going to throw around 60-something%.
Just like we saw both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill win some matchups in a game that we won against Miami.
Yeah, I think the big thing is going to come down to, can the Bills model, which they have had pretty good consistency with, is that we're going to force you to do those long sustained drives multiple times a game to get to points. Can that hold up in the bend but don't break and force a handful of field goals in this game? And I think that's going to be the difference. And there'll be some frustrating long drives, but as long as this defense can hold up in the red zone, and that's going to be one of the big strength versus strength matchups, is both these teams, the Bills defense and the Cincinnati offense, are both good red zone teams. I think that's where we'll see who can pull away, because I think we know that the Bills will be able to score against this defense. And I think that we also agree that Bengals will be able to move the ball. It's, can the Bills hold them to a few more field goals in this game? And I think that'll be all the difference. What does Steven say here?
He makes an interesting point, saying these two defenses are made for the opposing offenses. Look for a low-scoring defensive game. The quarterback who cracks the code wins. I definitely agree with the third line about the quarterback who cracks the code wins. Mm-hmm. I'm torn on whether I think styles make fights, like in boxing. I do think it's interesting where the two defenses match up in doing this. Trey Hendrickson is playing for the Bengals. They are kind of pretty similar in the not blitzing a ton, trying to get home with the guys they have. Awesome safety play, pretty good corner play. Like, there's a lot of similarities between the two defenses. I don't think it's crazy to think that the defense could win more than what we're expecting. I expect a few more points than what Steve did in his projection there, but it's interesting. I think it's in play. I think a lot of people are expecting a shootout and crazy back and forth all the time, and it's possible that we could see the defense I think, come up with some stops.
and obviously we'll get deeper into it later. I think if that's what we're going down to, what is going to be the separator in this matchup, I think that puts the Bills hands down ahead.
Does favor.
I think that they've been pretty inconsistent in Cincinnati. I think they're about average defense in Cincinnati. I think that they have opportunities to be exposed, where so far this season, the Bills have been one of the best, most elite defenses in the NFL. I do think that probably this matchup is the one that would expose even the best defense in the league. And when Cincinnati's clicking, there isn't a defense that's going to really slow them down. They have more
Chase
balance.
And Higgins are terrifying. And we haven't even mentioned the name Joe Mixon yet.
Joe Mixon terrifies me, absolutely. And the other playmakers, because of the attention and the gravity that those guys get, it opens up so much more in these other matchups that you're pulling gravity for Higgins and Chase in terms of safety help and bracketed coverage and stuff like that. And then you're putting it on Matt Milano, Taron Johnson, all these other guys to win those one-on-one matchups where there's usually a little bit more help because you don't have that much focus on multiple different players on the team. So they present so many problems, even to a top tier defense, that I do think, a DVOA will adjust for it, but some of the stats will make it look like, well, the Bills defense got beat up today because they finally gave up over 20 something points and all that. But I think that would still be a win in my eyes if they keep them in the low 20s, allow them to move the ball all day long, but keep them in under 30 points. I think that's the path to having a chance in this game.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get into it, but it's crazy the depth that they go through when you got Joe Mixon off the field. Don't worry, Samaje Perine coming in and he's been electric the last couple of weeks. Or we finally locked down Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst are coming across the other direction. They have an embarrassment of riches on that offensive, surrounded, also probably the most accurate quarterback in the NFL with an embarrassment of riches. It's shocking that they've rattled off 7 in a row, scoring a ton of points.
Crazy. Speaking of quarterbacks, there's been some quarterback news around the league, right? Like a lot of not in Buffalo. There hasn't been a ton of news.
Yeah,
luckily.
Well, one, a really good discussion that our guests that'll be joining us here in just a moment, Glenn and Joe Goodberry have both been engaged in, is one that I've tried to be even-handed about, and that I don't understand why people have this burning need to debate Allen versus Mahomes versus Joe Burrow, and that
we love ranking things.
We do, and the thing that I put out there is all three fan bases should be ecstatic. All three fan bases have locked in rock solid franchise quarterbacks. None of us would trade our guy for the other guy, and everybody should be happy.
It's like Manning, Roethlisberger, Brady, maybe one was similar, slightly better, but everyone was happy, right?
And even with that, I've gotten into it because there's I will say, so Cincinnati fans seem to be pretty consistently defensive over feeling like Burrow should be on their level. Mahomes and Kansas City fans keep arguing that, hey, those two aren't even on his level
because of the
rings. And then Bills fans are usually just angry about everybody. So it's okay to say Patrick Mahomes has accomplished more than either of the other two guys have. Patrick Mahomes has the best first 6-year resume of any player in NFL history. That doesn't mean it's absurd to acknowledge he walked into an awesome situation with probably the greatest offensive mind since Bill Walsh, and that it doesn't mean it's crazy to pick someone else going forward. No one can possibly make an argument that Josh Allen or Joe Burrow have been better than Patrick Mahomes, because they haven't. Patrick Mahomes has been unbelievable and historic. It doesn't mean you're crazy to say, I would rather have Josh Allen going forward. I think if you asked most people, the majority would pick Patrick Mahomes because you have a track record. It's easy to lean back on the resume and be like, hey, I'm going to trust that the guy who's done this will continue to do more of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're crazy.
Because I think he can also do a lot of things.
Sure.
Does, right? You see the same types of things.
Yeah. And that's what I brought. Like, Joe Burrow is the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen has a bazooka and can run the ball. And Patrick Mahomes is somehow a blend of the two and can do a whole bunch of everything. And it's okay to say that, hey, I acknowledge he's accomplished more, but I'd rather have our guy going forward. And yes, there's probably some hopeful, projection into those statements, But when you have that franchise guy that you know can accomplish those things, it's okay to say that and just to be happy.
Yeah, and I think especially the argument needs to be made when you're starting from scratch, right?
Yes.
We're not starting with Andy Reid. We're not starting with the teams in place that you're coming into. So these are hard, man. I really wish I've been trying to fight this argument for so many years, Greg. You know that in terms of like actual rankings, tiered rankings, like let's just have actual tiers and have an elite tier and then a middle of the pack tier and a below average starter tier. And just lump them in. And I think at the end, you'll probably have any given year 5 to 6 guys in that elite tier that you can debate amongst themselves. And then you'll probably have 15 or so guys in the middle, and then it'll sort itself out. But I think you have that elite tier and all the guys that you talked about. And I think Herbert probably belongs in there as or at least as a fringe candidate there. But I do think I
like to throw shots that good for him for making the playoffs for the first time. There's a couple things that, there's some things that it's okay to like to see. And the two defensive fan bases are the fan base that had the longest playoff drought in professional sports history and one who was lovingly called the Bungles. And of course, we're going to then cling to the guys who took us to places we haven't been in, almost 30 years each to then feel good about, where we're at. But without further ado, let's invite two gentlemen on who know this discussion intimately and have joined us in some of that online this week. The brothers Goodberry, Joe and Glenn. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
What's going on, fellas?
So you guys, we're able to jump on and hear a little bit of where Aaron and I were going. And I think that all four of us have done pretty well trying to play referee in a lot of our fan bases and a lot of the friends around us that, hey, it's okay to love our guy. It's okay to pick our guy and to say that we prefer our guy. You don't have to pretend to put down the other one in order to do that. Like it's getting a little silly in some of the arguments and things that I've seen posted of like, come on, the other guy's awesome. It's okay to acknowledge that he's awesome.
And you know what I think from having Andy Dalton for so many years, and maybe you guys feel this for the Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, even the Trent Edwards era. When you have those guys that you're not really sure are good enough, but you kind of have these arguments sometimes, well, maybe if we get a bit more offensive line, maybe if we get them another weapon, maybe if we get the defense better, like there's so many of these things that you feel like you need to put around those type of guys that it becomes very argumentative even within the fan base of if this guy is good enough. So when you get him, it's like, oh, yeah, like, I mean, once you realize it and you're comfortable with it, like, I don't care that the Bills have a quarterback. I don't care that you feel like you can beat anyone. It doesn't matter. Yep. Like, quarterback 1 through 10, in my opinion, can win the Super Bowl this year. Mm-hmm. And, like, anyone outside, if you're a quarterback 15, 16, like, if maybe you're Derek Carr at 17, 18, you're getting benched. Ryan Tannehill, like, Titans, you're like, sorry, guys, probably not going to win it with your guy. Like, that's when you guys are arguing and fighting. We can sit in here inside the bubble and say, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, as a Bills fan, for so many years, you're rooting for somebody in the playoffs, those 17 years. And as a football fan, you find a quarterback or a team or something you're kind of pulling for. And as a fan of football also, it's okay to like great play. It's okay to like great players that aren't necessarily Josh Allen. And I fawn over Joe Burrow. I own a Joe Burrow jersey. Sometimes I get heckled because I have so many other jerseys that aren't Buffalo Bills. Peyton Manning's and Eli Manning's and stuff like that, because it's just sort of fun to be a football fan. But
I got one for while we got you guys on here to dial it back a little bit. So last week we had my brother on the show. He's a Bears fan and he does a Bears podcast. And so when I hit you guys up, it's sort of the timing worked out of back-to-back week of brother preview shows here, but
we're keeping it in the family.
Yeah, we're weird, right? The Quins are weird boys for our own reasons, and we were in Connecticut, so we didn't have a hometown team. But Glenn, can you talk to us? Because I've talked to Joe a few times on the show and gotten his story of how he's become a Bengals fan. But can you help me how you guys didn't do your job as the rest of his family to keep him in the Mafia? What happened? How do you get out of the Mafia, man?
He's a closet Mafia man. I've taken him to Bills games, as long as it's not a conflict of interest. I got pictures of him from last year, that Bills Chiefs playoff game. He's wearing a Diggs shirt because he does like Stephon Diggs.
Oh, Diggs is my man.
Yeah.
But
That's first round grade, Stephon Diggs. Okay, that's why.
Oh,
right?
nice.
He just sort of veered off. He had to be that guy. He's also a Boston Bruins fan, you know, in that respect too. So, you know, it was just sort of the way he went. There's always this story our father tells that our mother had this crush on Boomer Esiason. And, you know, it sort of makes a little bit of sense. But I do remember, you know.
Oh, you think he's handsome also then?
Well, yeah, you know, Boomer's a
He's
good-looking
handsome.
guy, even
He's a
older.
good-looking man.
Good-looking guy. And I remember just back in the day, my dad buying us football jerseys. Joe had Carl Pickens. I had Jim Kelly. And this was towards the end of, like, the Kelly era. And Kelly was sort of getting run out of town a little bit in those days. I got, like, picked on for wearing this Kelly jersey in, like, 1996. So I show up in Joe's Carl Pickens jersey at school, and all the kids are like, oh, that's awesome. That's cool. So it was like Carl Pickens was the man. But I don't necessarily remember where it was. Joe was sort of steered off to become a Bengals fan. But, you know, it's just always how I remembered it, I guess.
Yeah, they never forced me to, you know, to like what they embraced it. I think it helped for the drought because had the Bills been good during those 17-year stretch where they made the playoffs and the Bengals, it just 03 was when Carson Palmer, Marvin Lewis, right? So at that point, I'm 16 and I already like the Bengals, but now I can have something to hold on to. Like you guys, how many people love Josh Allen and the Bills now compared to 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, and I think people don't realize maybe in hindsight how freaking good that Carson Palmer, Ocho Cinco team was.
And it was quick.
Yeah.
And like they go 8-8 that first year when they haven't even gone 8-8 in 15 years at that point. And then the second year, and it's like Carson Palmer's playing, they got high flying offense. Third year, it's like, dude, I think we can win the Super Bowl. And I'm 19 years old and I'm like, this is fun. And then it just stuck. I just stayed with it completely at that point because I did have times of, I'm not even watching that many Bengals games. They're not even on TV. They don't have a primetime game. I could pick any team really at that when I'm 14 years old, but I just kind of stayed with it.
I can respect it. It's, you know, it's fun. And, you know, I went to college in Cleveland. My wife is born and raised here. My father-in-law is born and raised here. So I take my wife to non-competitive Cleveland games, like ones that I'm not invested in. I still, all of my friends are emotionally invested. My life is easier if they have something fun to root for. It's a little funny when they don't. But, you know, I still get the idea of having that kind of second.
See, my life's the opposite. Everyone I know has some ties to the Patriots, and so I don't like. There's no fun of like I'll just go to a Patriots game for fun or like root for their success, like auxiliary. Like that doesn't happen. I only want them to have suffering and misery in their lives.
Yeah.
So let's get into this matchup a little bit more detailed here, and we'll queue up a couple of things. And one of the parts we were talking about is obviously, you know, the key elements here of this matchup. And I know Aaron's got a couple questions kind of queued up to go through.
Yeah, so
what our normal rundown is, and we'll put you guys in our position of kind of playing some of the matchups and chime in on some of your thoughts.
Yeah, so normally for those that follow the show every week, obviously Greg and I, we take a side and we go through the guest on that side of the ball and run through the matchup. So for Joe on this one, this matchup, I would have the Bills defense versus the Cincinnati Bengals offense, which is, in my opinion, I got again the great matchup again this week, Greg. You're just
screwed all season
long. I'm getting the best matchups every week. But so we know the guys, right? We know Burrow, we know Mixon, we know Chase, Higgins. Greg and I were talking about that before. We know the names. Real quick, run us down maybe some of the things that you don't know as a casual fan that you should be looking at in this matchup. Anything that's changing heading into this matchup that we should be aware of going in for this, and then kind of how, as the Bengals, you would attack this Bills defense. And then when he's done with that, Glenn, I want you to come in and either counter how he's attacking or how, as the Bills, you would dictate what you think the Bills plan on defense to slow down this Cincinnati offense. I'm going to step back and give you Goodberry's the floor on this matchup and go for it, guys.
So the major change so far for the Bengals, or the recent one, is that La'el Collins tore his ACL, MCL last week against the Patriots. The Bengals, to this point, had the most snaps with their starting unit on the offensive line in the entire league. They haven't missed anyone yet in this entire year. They're going to have to slide in a former fifth-round pick that really hasn't played well He's played a lot, though. 800 snaps last year at right guard, 300 snaps in his career at tackle. He's going to slide in at right tackle. They think he's a better tackle than guard. I'm not convinced. I think Glenn can serve this up, but I think it's a terrible matchup versus Gregory Rousseau as a power rusher. Akeem Adeniji at right tackle is 6'4", 305. He can get beat with power. So I'm watching that. Like, my eyes are going to be on that side. But I think if you haven't watched a lot of Bengals games, you might be surprised that this is a very similar stylistically offense to the Bills without the design quarterback runs. They're a shotgun, spread it out offense that'll dink dunk until you give them one-on-one shots and they'll take it on the outside. They are running out of shotgun, inside zone, duo type of stuff, and letting their running backs just get to the second level free, like quick handoff, boom, up the middle, and hopefully they can bust one. They've gotten a lot better running the ball. In the second half of the year, they had to figure things out. I think in the first half of the year, they wanted to be an under center, wide zone team, and then a shotgun team. It's hard to do that. It's really hard to marry those two together. It became too obvious when they're going to throw and when they're going to run. And then in the last 8 weeks or so, and it's why they've gone on this run, I believe, they married the two, got rid of the under center, wide zone stuff. They'll still go to it once in a while in short and obvious run situations where it doesn't matter if you know they're running the ball. But largely, they are a shotgun team 95% of the time, and everything's going to look the same pre-snap. The one major thing lately is because teams started playing a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 4, and the Bills right now are about 50% either cover 2 or cover 2-man trail. That has been the coverage that'll slow the Bengals down the most. The Bengals have gone to counter it by putting Jamar Chase more in the slot and using him to attack the middle, and he is so hard to tackle. I think that is the thing. When we were coming out of LSU, we're like, man, this guy's contested catch, going over guys, be just a tough Anquan Bolden he was getting compared to. He's actually more Steve Smith. Give it to him underneath. Let him make someone miss. He's caught 70 balls this year. I bet he's been tackled by the first guy 5 times all year. I bet he's been tackled out of 70 catches 20 times this year.
Just to chime in quick, the fact that watching an NFL offense where the go-to clutch play on 3rd and 7 was a bubble screen where it was like, hey, Jamar, go do your thing,
right,
is mind-blowing. Like like lots of teams go to their number one target and trust him to beat his guy. Not many of them do it on like, hey, we're going to give it to you behind the line of scrimmage because we know you're going to break enough tackles to convert on a critical 3rd and 6.
You'll see him lined up as a running back in this game. They'll bring him in motion, orbit motion, bring him and try and just get matchups to get the ball in his hands and let him break a tackler, make someone miss. And that's a key thing. And then you talk about like 3rd and gotta have it. They had that versus the Chiefs also, and they run a slant to T. Higgins because they've got another guy they think is a number 1 big body. So the Bengals will dictate to the Bills as long as the Bills don't come out of that cover 2 shell. If they do, the ball's going deep, and that's just how they go. And that's the Bengals offense.
All right, Glenn, make me feel better about that.
Okay, so I'll do my best to try to make you feel better about this, especially missing Von Miller. So obviously that's a huge hit, right? Especially with the Bengals missing their big target free agent. This guy's going to save our offensive line, and they've been pretty successful, in that regard. But much like you did with guys like Tom Brady, who would lose those Super Bowls when they're big, favorites, you need to disrupt Joe Burrow. You want to stop the big 3 from catching balls. You need to disrupt Joe Burrow. You need to disrupt his timing. You need to get pressure on him. Sacks will come with the pressure. It's not going to take one guy alone. You think Greg Rousseau might get 3 sacks. But they're going to need pressure, and they're going to be bringing blitz more, in my opinion, than they normally do without Von Miller. Milano's going to be big. Mm-hmm. Edmonds is going to be big. If you can't stop Joe, if you can't disrupt his timing, he's going to pick us apart. They're going to eat. Receivers have eaten against Buffalo this year. But, Joe Burrow also isn't just a pocket guy either. He can get out and create, even though he doesn't have design runs for him. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. He's a threat in the red zone
I didn't even want to bring that up because I think Bills fans, compared to Allen, he's going to look slow. Like Burrow's going to look like not elusive right. and slow. But to us, we're like, man, let him run. He could do some stuff.
So it is funny. Yeah, there's scales of it. And I would say he and Justin Herbert are both in the area of can get a 3rd down when they need to. I think Mahomes is maybe 1 half step above there where like, hey, you might need to spy every once in a while. And then you have Josh Allen in this weird tier that he's not a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, where like, hey, like they are so elusive in the open field that they're going to run as a primary threat, but he's also, it's weird. He's not fast.
It's probably just Hurts and Allen, right? Hurts.
It's the willing. Yeah. It's the willingness and you bring up Hurts and Allen. They're both built like Tonka trucks.
Sure.
And Justin Fields built like that. They're able to withstand it and go with that. So it is interesting where they're that, but I'll go back to you, Glenn, and that they actually, he's not a Jared Goff. He's not a Mac Jones where like you literally do not have to worry about them running ever. You actually do have to pay attention, especially on those third and shorts, because nothing is more frustrating than you finally figure out a solution for Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Hayden Hurst, and then you have freaking Joe Burrow scramble for 5 yards on a 3rd and 4. Nothing is more deflating to a defense.
Yeah, like Joe was saying too, with like Burrow's running style. Like Josh Allen, you're expecting him to smack into guys and jump over guys and do something more dramatic than just slide. I've seen Joe Burrow, take his share of, going in head first, but he's going to be a little more probably
careful.
Safer with
Hopefully.
his body.
Yeah, we'll deal with that in a decade. Those checks will come due, but we'll deal with that in a decade.
Exactly.
So Joe, let's flip a little bit to the other side of the ball here. I think there's a weird dichotomy in the fan base with the Bills where there is some excitement about what we've seen lately with Devin Singletary and with James Cook, and that, hey, do we have a little bit of traction going here? This is what we saw last year. And now you jump in, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there looking at DJ Reader and looking at this interior and Logan Wilson and guys that I won't lie, I'm not terrified of Jermaine Pratt, maybe, in some aspects of it, but I don't want to necessarily run into the teeth of the middle of those guys, and Jesse Bates right behind them, and the pillars built up the middle is not dissimilar from where the Bills are built in their defense. And that I think if we're going to keep up and go at this defense, I want to be attacking the edges. I want to be getting to the outside. I want to be testing, a big Gabe Davis game and a Stephon Diggs on the outside, not pushing him into the slot and dealing with, Mike Hilton. And I want to test the guys on the outside. Do you think we're going to see the Bills shift away from what's been working really well the last couple of weeks based on the matchup? Or do you think they're going to test that first and see if they can be the first ones to move DJ Reader? Because I haven't seen him move yet this year.
No, DJ Reader is an all-pro nose tackle this year. And honestly, I think only D tackles really playing better, especially against the run, or maybe Dexter Lawrence. And I think Daquan Jones has been really good. But
he's been really good. I don't know if he's been equal to that level. Discussion.
We're putting the tiers, then maybe he's the next one, which is fine. He's been really good. But I think Christian Wilkins as well for the Dolphins has been tremendous. Reader he's an apex player. They have two of them on defense. I think it's Jesse Bates. I think it's DJ Reader. When you have Reader in there, you can, like the Bills, they'll stay in their nickel all game long. And they don't care because they feel like Mike Hilton can defend the run as a slot corner. And they feel like because Jesse Bates free safety range, they'll bring Von Bell into the box. And now you've got somebody like Reader who's going to play the job of two because you're going to have to put two guys on him. And then you have Mike Hilton coming off the slot and you have Von Bell added into the box. They can defend the run out of nickel. And I think DVOA has them as the only defense in nickel that is positive or negative how they do it. But as a positive defense, only one against the run in their nickel. And so the Bengals will stay in there and they'll say, okay, Buffalo, run it. Because, that obviously, that's what you want to do. Go ahead and run it. You want to run it? You want to run for 150? Do it. Okay? We're not going to let Allen throw for 350. That's the plan going into anyone's game, I think, against the Bills. The Bengals, like you said, you want to attack these corners. It's Eli Apple. It's Cam Taylor-Britt. They lost Chidobe Awuzie is the only other guy they lost for the year now. So we got Lael Collins at right tackle, Chidobe Awuzie at corner, who's playing really, really well. He was their number one. Since losing him, they had second-round pick Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska going to that spot. He's been up or down. He's physical. He's a little bit rougher on the edges. Ball skills or something, you probably throw it right over his head, and you'll see Diggs probably catch one, and Cam Taylor-Britt has no idea the ball went over his head. But the Bengals will funnel it away from them. So they're going to say middle field open. Don't throw towards the corners come in and throw court against our safeties, against Mike Hilton, against our 2 linebackers. Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds, tremendous, young, athletic, can cover. The Bengals have the exact same thing with Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. They're young, they're athletic, they can cover. Their former safeties. They're like, throw it this way. Throw it to our guys that we know can make plays and that are really good. And so it's like Allen's going to have to hold it, say, do I want to hit Knox? Are you going to get guys into the slot? Is it going to be Beasley in the slot? Is it going to be Diggs in the slot? Or can he break free and make something happen and find a guy deep down the sidelines? That's how it's going to work. But the Bengals also, they get a lot of pressures. They get a lot of hits on the quarterback. They don't get a lot of sacks. Yep. And if you watch them, they just contain the whole time, especially against mobile quarterbacks. You watch them against Mahomes or Lamar Jackson in the division, Deshaun Watson a few weeks ago. They just contain. They just contain and say, stay in the pocket. We're not going to let you extend and expose our corners on the outside. You're going to have to make an even harder throw. Allen has the arm to do that. Can he stay cool and do it? That's what I think is where they're going to try and say, we're going to drop everyone. Keep it cool, Allen, and see how long you'll stay calm.
Before we get over to Glenn's side on this stuff too, do you think we will see, because this was the interesting thing, I wanted to see the Bills and Bengals match up in the playoffs after seeing what they did with Kansas City. Do you think we'll see some of the ways that they defended Mahomes in Kansas City with some of the 3-man rush type stuff and dropping more guys into coverage? Or are we going to get a pretty much similar blueprint?
I think so. I think and they only did it like 6 times against even Tom Brady. They did and so it wasn't too much of scrambling. It was
situationally.
We're going to show the same blitz. We're going to show the same look. We're going to blitz them a couple times. We're going to just give it to you. Oh, third down, pull them, drop everyone up. And you see every time the quarterback's like, they got a 50% success rate so far in dropping 8 this season. And it's like, I'll take a 50% every time on something you're just going to pull the trigger on a third down. So it's been really successful. Lou Anarumo is a really good defensive coordinator at knowing what you're weak against and making you fight through it. And he usually has 2 different game plans. So it's first half game plan. If it doesn't work, we've got the second one. These guys have all been in the system, and he pulls the cord in the second half and completely will flip the script. You've got to be ready for both. So if you see early, they're like playing off coverage, not really blitz and doing anything like that, it's going to be the exact opposite in the second half.
So I was going to say, Glenn, now with the way Joe described that and the invitation to go there, and you've seen the last couple games, what do you want to see, and what do you think we will see?
I feel like especially against Chicago, Buffalo really trying to establish the run game and show that they have that facet of the offense, and they're not relying on Josh Allen to be that 50 to 75 yards a game type of guy, which he can be. James Cook, his development has been crazy from game 1. They lost a little trust, I feel like, to really trusting him and giving him the opportunity, and he's sort of capitalizing on it right now.
He's dangerous.
I think
real quick aside, how crazy is it that we are ecstatic about a game where he didn't catch a football? Like, what did you expect that coming into the year, that we'd be like, oh my God, I'm so excited about James Cook, and that it was all rushing?
Right.
Maybe that's why. Seeing the other part.
He looked confident and patient and following his blocks and hitting the seat. It was real good. So I do think Buffalo's going to try to establish some sort of run, but like they also did with Chicago last weekend, they still wanted to identify as a pass-first offense. You're wondering, why are they going away from the run? And then Josh is still throwing the ball. I think establishing the run will help maybe bring a little more inside where Josh can start working those corners, maybe some deep balls mixed in there. I think Diggs is really hungry right now. Diggs is, if he's not getting in their ears right now during this these practices coming up, he looks a little like, he wants to say something on the sidelines as far as his targets go. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. His body language.
That Lions game was the first time I saw it.
Oh, he said some things.
Yes. Well, also how chippy sort of the Bengals secondary can be also. I think there's going to be some battles there. I think there's going to be some sort of, give me the ball, I need this, some sort of Josh and Steph really, working on that chemistry they have together. So I do think there's going to be it opening back up to the pass. Weather, I don't think really plays a factor, because we still talked about it's going to be warmer. There's going to be a slight breeze, possible chance of
Right.
drizzle.
Yeah.
I still think they end up, especially if they're down. Josh Allen hero ball isn't something I want to see, but it might be, that thing that helps them.
You might
win
have
if
to.
they're down.
Embrace the hero
I like
ball.
to live and die with it. Let's go.
Yeah. So Joe,
Yeah.
one last quick question that I need you to speak to Bills fans to let them know how bad we have it. That you also have two young, athletic coverage linebackers. So I need you to tell Bills fans what it's like to root for two good, young, athletic linebackers that never pick the wrong gap, never miss tackles, and never get caught up in blocks. Because good linebackers don't do that.
Right.
Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds do that sometimes, and that's why they're trash. But let them know what it's like.
Milano's not trash, just Edmonds.
I forgot. My bad. Matt Milano is unbelievable and has never made a mistake in the history of ever. Tremaine Edmonds is a trash human. Let them know what it's like to root for two young athletic linebackers who never get caught up in blocks or never make the wrong read or go to the wrong gap or never get washed out and run plays.
Well, I have sensed your sarcasm, and that is not a thing. I wish I could tell you, but it's not a thing. Those things happen, especially, I would say, just speaking in generalities, any former safety, and that's not the case with your guys, with Edmonds, but any athletic linebacker is probably going to
linebacker, modern coverage linebacker.
Fine, whatever you want to call it, is probably going to be a little weaker against the run and in the physical portion of the game. Now, I did see a comment below. Do the Bengals linebackers miss tackles like the Bills linebackers? No, the Bills are, by a lot of accounts, maybe the worst tackling team in the league. And the Bengals are a top 10 tackling team in the league. So that it'd be something to watch. If we see in this, here comes his missed tackles on Jamar Chase, where the Bengals are more rallying to it, even though I don't think it has affected the Bills as much. I think guys fall off, and there's three other guys right behind them, and they make the tackle.
I think the missed tackle stuff's overblown.
Agreed. That's what I mean. Unless it's beating you for like a 60-yard play, and you're like, these guys can't fucking tackle.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't see that happening against the Bills.
To your point, I think this is the kind of game where it rears its head. It's those Miami games. It's these games where you have a Jamar Chase that it's like, if you don't get that tackle, you're going to give him the chance to take it 60, 70 yards. Most games, I think that you're right, that it's missed the tackle, three guys are right there rallying, or that missed tackle is slowing a guy down in the hole, and it's a 2-yard gain. And everyone's mad about the total missed tackle stats, but they don't realize how we got to that point.
Every other game, we do see it on the way to a touchdown run. We have seen it here or there, but I will say, just like the Bengals, that's also happened in 6 straight wins. So it obviously hasn't been too detrimental. Like
when the teams are scoring 17 points a game,
it's
like
frustrating.
one of those
it's like drops.
Points,
People lose their mind over drops. It doesn't really matter if you make a 30-yard catch right after.
Yes.
Like a drop is worth very small and to what a receiver can actually do. I think missed tackles are the same way. But it will be interesting. I think speaking of Jermaine Pratt, because a lot of people probably don't know who he is in Buffalo. He probably has the strongest grip in the entire NFL. Like, well, let's see if you notice that, like something like, whoa, this guy is like making arm tackles that you should not make because he's just wham and just like dragging with the dude until he pulls him down. It's really impressive. So just to see if like that may be a difference in what we're looking at.
Well,
it'd be interesting to see.
In that vein, now is time to put you guys on the spot like we do to all of our guests that come through here. Joe, you are the visiting team, so we will start with you here. We want to get
visiting team. That's in Cincinnati.
You're visiting here. You're visiting the visiting team tonight
of our show. Although we are the locals here. Greg's out of state. We are the locals. You are visiting in the Cover One Buffalo show.
This is very weird.
It is. I want to get your sort of how the game's going to go, and then a score prediction of the game here.
I expect a very close game, and I don't know that it's going to start that way. The Bengals have had a lot of games, whether it's with the top teams or just even randomly, where they're down to the Bucks. What was it, 22-0, and then they come up and they just destroy them in the second half. Or they've got the Patriots. That was the 22-0 at halftime. They look completely like it was going to be 45-0 type game.
Such a great game.
Some weird bunch of crazy stuff happens. It's football. So I don't know that it will be tight early. I hope it is. I hope it's tight the entire way, but I think it will get tight. And then that's how these games go. I do think Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, like I know you guys have had a little bit rivalry with the Chiefs because you've played them so many times. We have too. The Bills and Bengals haven't played each other. It's kind of weird. It's kind of an unknown of like, I really don't know how we match up completely. I can see it on paper. I can watch the tape of the two and kind of see it. I still think this is going to be like a Bills-Chiefs game, like a Bengals-Chiefs game. One score, someone's got to make a play at the end, and you hope it's your guys. I think that's how it goes.
What do you
What's your
predict the
score?
will be?
I'm going to go 27-24 Bengals field goal at the end.
All right, Glenn, don't let us down.
Yeah, I'm thinking, probably like a herky-jerky first half. Like, we want to beat the Bills up like we have been lately in this,
Like, what are they? Why don't they have 40 already? Do you guys have that too in the
exactly.
fan base? It's
All the
2
time.
drives in. Like, why didn't they have 35 on the board?
Every score that's not a touchdown is a failure.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're so used to blowing teams out. I do expect a close game, though. I think the second half will probably be a little more explosive. But I don't think it's going to be like that, that 38-34 game. And literally, I had, tweeted under the Bills that posted something earlier that it was going to be a 27-24 Bills game, just like literally Joe said. And I think it's going to be a close game. I think if turnovers run rampant for one of the two teams, then there could be a bigger gap because the Bengals capitalized like crazy when they played the Bucs a few weeks ago, and the Bills can quick strike too, in my opinion, on some turnovers. So we'll see. Hopefully not. Honestly, I'd love a more comfortable victory. I miss those from the first month or so.
Yeah, right. Enough one-score games. I don't like it.
And Joe and I are actually traveling down, so
that's awesome.
I don't know, awesome. Going behind enemy lines, how I want to be.
Yeah.
So.
Stay safe.
You guys aren't consuming any of that trash chili they serve up in Cincinnati, are you?
I would just like to say,
lunch.
Yeah, Gold Star sent me a gift card. Thank you very much, Aaron, to spend over there. So yes,
there you go.
Will be consumed.
See, I gave you a chance for a plug, man.
So before we let you guys go, I do want to say we've had a couple people comment about the awesome man cave tour that we have going on here. So anyone who hasn't seen, besides awesome football coverage, both Joe and Glenn have some incredibly awesome hobbies, side hustles,
detailed man cave stuff.
Yeah, eye for detail in style. So some of the things you see over Joe's shoulder there, I believe, are not only collections but creations.
Yes, there's plenty of creations back there for sure.
Some awesome adaptations. Glenn as well has many in that area, and people were commenting on the shoes hanging. The man has one of the most impressive shoe collections I've ever seen. And
these are my kids' Jordans. As they grow out of them, I hang them back up. I hang them up.
That's awesome. I'm jealous. I didn't think of that. That's awesome.
But yeah, this is the Nerdseum here, guys.
So
I got an empty shelf.
I got my kids Jordan once. I got him some Jordans and he destroyed them, and I can't give him anymore. I told him he liked them, and I was like, dude, you didn't take good care of them. You can't have them.
That's what you get. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot. I actually meant to send this earlier. So obviously, I told a story before you guys came on. We had a weird Christmas, obviously, like many people in the area. We combined ours with the weird blizzard and travel with getting the flu right after. So we did our Christmas morning this morning. I open up a shirt, and I always get a variety of Bills things. Some from awesome to like, oh, hey, thank you, and everything in between. I get a shirt, and I'm looking at it, and I have a feeling that my wife got this on Etsy, and that the person on Etsy stole it, and that I actually owe you like $2 in royalties. So it is a Star Wars-esque design with Josh Allen meditating.
I made that one last year.
You did? I didn't know that.
So I saw right there in the football, I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I opened this!" And I, in my head,
today,
Etsy's the Wild West, man. People on Etsy steal everything.
It makes me so partially happy that maybe you got money for this, or that someone just completely stole it,
ripped you
and
off.
that my wife paid them money.
I'm not even offended, to be honest. I think it's pretty awesome. Just get the logo out there. I don't care how it gets out there.
I wore it today. I wore it around town today.
I think that's pretty awesome. I watermark everything I make, so there's a little on the brain logo every time I make something somewhere.
I wonder if they even noticed or didn't care.
They don't care.
My guess is, well, one, they probably didn't care, and two, it's not so noticeable.
Right.
Like, it's actually a pretty small part of the design down there. But as I looked at it, I was like, oh my god,
I know that guy.
On the brain. I know that.
I also
he's coming on my show tonight.
I take the opacity down a little bit so that way, you know, it blends in a little bit more. So that
like a real watermark. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was just unbelievable that I opened that gift this morning with you guys already coming on tonight. It was fantastic.
I got this for Christmas. It's a Bengals helmet that's silver with an orange face mask, and I think it's awesome.
That's classy. My brother-in-law was up for Thanksgiving, bought a random helmet at Dave and Adams, a random signed helmet that comes in a box. You don't know what it was? It was a Jamar Chase signed helmet.
Oh, man, that's nice.
What a night. And he's a Patriots fan, but he's like, you know what? I'm not mad about this.
No.
I'm not mad about this at all.
You see that at every stadium when the Bengals go in. Like, people like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and it's kind of weird. Of course, I'm like, this is cool. But at the same time, I'm like, man, you guys probably get that with Allen.
Yeah, we'll let you guys get out of here. I won't lie. That we get that with Allen a lot. I was in New England this summer and had like Patriots fans being like, you know what? It's hard to dislike this guy. Right. Like, I like watching him. It's like, oh, I don't want you to like him. I want you to hate him.
I want you to know I never felt that way about Tom Brady.
I tell them all the time. Yeah, that feeling was not mutual.
I never
mutual at all. No.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you both had a very Merry Christmas. I hope that we have an entertaining, healthy game.
For sure.
I hope you guys have a safe drive down and back.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is round 1 of 2. So let's keep this one healthy and entertaining. Then
maybe we'll be the visiting team in round 2, hopefully.
Yeah, then you guys can come up to Orchard Park for the second.
Okay, because I'm confused. All right. Who's visiting where? Because I'm visiting. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
The next time you will be the visiting team. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, you'll be at home. You'll be home, but you'll be visiting.
That's right. Exactly.
It'll make sense later. We promise.
Yeah.
All right.
Glenn will explain it to you when you're there.
Everybody, you guys will see their information in the show description. All kinds of different stuff that you can check out. Joe's podcast and everything good that Glenn has going on as well. Make sure you're checking out other things. Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it very, very much, and hope for a very entertaining game.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. All right. So family week has been fun. Having your brother on and now having both Glenn and Joe on has been a really fun way to approach these last couple games. And I gotta say, I kind of like going into the first game in a while that it hasn't been just easy to pick. That. Don't get me wrong. I always know that it's possible the Bills aren't going to win because we've shot ourselves in the foot against the Vikings and the Jets and that weird ending for the Dolphins game. So, but it's also pretty easy to tell yourself that the Bills are 12-0 and the Bills are 0-3. We've beat ourselves 3 times. I don't know how much the other teams had to do with those victories in the 3 losses. And now going into a game where this is the first one in a while the Bills could play really well and lose. And we haven't had that in a while. And that obviously I think if we bring our A game, we win. But this is the kind of game where we could play a B or a B plus game. And the Bengals are the kind of team that they probably need to play an A or an A plus against that. But if they do, they have the elite playmakers that they can win this game. They can beat the Bills when it's not just the Bills shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I think this game it does line up more closely to Miami Dolphins, even the Minnesota Vikings in terms of where the teams are. I actually don't believe this is hard for me to say. I don't believe necessarily that the Bengals are on that Bills tier. I think it's Bills, KC, Philly, Dallas are the top tier for me right now. And I think barring this game, if the Bengals come out and lay it to the Bills, then sure, I'll put them up in that tier. But for right now, I think they're just like right on the edge of that tier looking in. And I do think that they're more closely with some of these other playoff teams, your Vikings, Dolphins, some of these other teams that on any given day, they have enough talent to put it to you and they can win close games and you can't go into a game with them lightly. But I do think the Bills can do what they've done where it's, play games where they leave a little meat on the bone. They punt a few more times than you want. Allen has a turnover that you just is untimely, you don't love, but they still can find a way to win. I think they've got that good of a team here, even against the Bengals. But I do agree with you that in terms of the types of offenses, I do think there's probably more balance and slightly more ability to use some of the weapons than the Miami offense has. Probably the same with Minnesota. There's more of it than Minnesota has. So and Burrow's a substantially better quarterback than you have in Minnesota. So I think those things kind of line up to where if they're clicking at their best and the Bills put a B game together, that's when I think that you get in trouble. But if both teams are doing what we've seen on film this year, which is winning games, but not always playing their most best consistent football. I watched 3 Bengals games this week. I had a little bit of a tough time getting prepped for the show and watching the normal amount of games, but I didn't see tons of stretches of consistent football. And I think that their fan base probably has to feel a lot how the Bills fan base has, where you're trending in the right direction late in the season here, but you still haven't probably seen a complete or your best game of football, which is fine.
Yeah.
But man, wouldn't both teams like to see that finally rise here this weekend?
So there's some weird similarities to that 5-game winning streak the Dolphins had when they were feeling on top of the world and everything going just right. And then you look back and be like, oh, I guess it was the Texans and the Lions and the Steelers, because the Bengals are on a 7-game winning streak. And I did watch the same thing. I was able to get to 4. And they are consistent. They consistently play one half of good football, very consistently. They very consistently play one half of good football. And it's been good enough to win 7 straight games. But when you look back, 6 of those 7 games are the Panthers, the Steelers, the Titans, the Browns, the Patriots, having to come back on the Buccaneers being down 17-0, having to hold on at the end against the Patriots after being up 22-0, giving up 18 points in a scoreless second half, and needing a Ramondre Stevenson fumble on 1st and 8 with 1:45 left, where it sure looked like the Patriots were going to punch that in for a game-winning touchdown. Mixed in there, the difference between them and the Dolphins is a 27-24 win against the Chiefs. It was at home, but it still is a win against the Chiefs. And that is the kind of game that, one, that's the reason the Bills are now, in first place for the AFC number 1 seed, because of that loss that knocked the Chiefs back even with us and got us back on even footing where our tiebreaker counted, but also is the kind of win that you can't dismiss, that I can't chalk that up like I could with all 5 wins in the Dolphins win streak.
Sure.
When you have 6 wins plus a 7th against the Chiefs, that carries more water, and that's just more legitimate. So I'm really curious to see.
I'm curious to find out how well is it. Like, sometimes you just end up with these matchups that
they
no matter
obviously have
what,
a strong matchup against the Chiefs to win 3 straight.
and
They
maybe
obviously have
that
a
matchup presents itself well against the Bills too. Kind of like what we were talking with Joe. Like, I do think there's probably some similarities between the Bills and the Chiefs, even though we see a lot of differences as fans that observe it in the big scheme picture of the league. When you look at offenses, I think you would say, hey, maybe we can do some of the same stuff we do against the Chiefs, and we can have that type of success of containing Allen to the pocket, not allowing. You're pretty much trying to stop the same things, right? Explosive QB that can cover every inch of
number
grass.
1 target, and then kind of a collection of other guys.
You got to cover
a
blade of grass. This guy can throw every blade of grass. You have to have slow rush, maintaining your lanes, containing your lanes. And those are things the Bengals have seemed to do well. So maybe those strengths play well against the Bills. But I do think sometimes you get a team that just another team doesn't have an answer for, and that maybe we associate, wow, this team beats the Chiefs all the time. They must be in that tier. They must be better than some of these teams. And I don't know that that's true. And I think this will be that test where we haven't seen them play this Bills team. Now, for me, at least, I think the proof will be in the pudding in this game.
Yeah. And to your point, I think most betting metrics, most higher end metrics that measure team performance have the Chiefs, Bills, and Eagles in a tier of their own, and then the Bengals right at the front of that next tier with the 49ers, the Bengals, the Chargers, used to be the Dolphins. I don't know.
The Cowboys were the Cowboys. Are they up in the
and the Cowboys are probably a half step behind those guys, but in that same ballpark of where those other teams are. Maybe a healthy Ravens team. They just haven't been healthy in a while.
Sure.
But yes, the Bengals were more at the front end of that second tier, not in the top tier. But this is the kind of game that will decide that. Obviously, if they beat the Chiefs and the Bills, that's as much as you can ask in a season. Like, you can't poke holes in things further than that if they're able to get a win here. Sure. But in the same vein, if the Bills get a win in Cincinnati and in Kansas City, that pretty much definitively shows that Vegas has those metrics right. There's a reason the Bills were favored in both of those cities, and that against elite teams, and to be hosting and to have the Bills favored in your stadium, if they go into both of those stadiums and win, that's about as definitive as you're going to get.
And that's a wrap, right? Bills win
Yeah.
this game, and that's the 1 seed,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, they still technically need to. It's not
They have to win
so
out,
much. Correct. It's not so much that they can rest people in week 18. They still have to show up and beat the Patriots. And I'm not so full of our team that I think we could bench over all of our starters. And
no, but I think you could go in with
starters.
a limited game plan of Allen only needing to throw when you have to and coast
maybe
through.
sitting the second half of the game.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are a bit in shambles where you could coast through this. Yeah. But anyways, that's it.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll see where that goes.
I don't want people in the YouTube comments being like, "Oh, 1 game at a time, guys. You guys can't go ahead of yourselves." Here.
We can look ahead
and look wherever
the Bills, the players need to go one game at a time. We can look ahead. It's fine.
Especially with this game. Here's the thing on this one, Greg, and if you don't mind, I'll step right into my prediction here because it's not going to be that fun of a prediction, and you'll see why in a second. But in a game like this, the reason I think I'm going to give the Bills the edge, and actually I have the same exact score as those other Goodberries here. I have it 27-24 the Bills. I too think it's going to be a close game. I think that this game's actually going to start out slow. I think both teams are going to come in probably a little tense, a little hype. They know the weight of this game. It's Monday night. This is probably one of the better Monday night matchups of the year, maybe the game of the year. At this point
besides Bills Chiefs. Like this is those are the 2 top games of the year.
I don't know if it'll live up to the billing, but in terms of hype leading into the week, there hasn't been a better matchup that I can remember for a primetime slot. This is perfect for the NFL. To me, the thing that's going to push the Bills over the top in this is the stated goals in that building. And we know what they work for, and we know what these leadership councils and all these things that Sean McDermott's put in place to do, and all these sayings of playoff caliber and all that. They talked about it, that winning the AFC East last week was a check mark, and they want to celebrate that. But that's just the first check mark on the list of things that they were setting out to accomplish this year. And when their backs were up against the wall and people were freaking out during the start of that slump a month and a half ago, everyone was worried that their destiny wasn't in their own hands. Well, very much so. Coming into this week, your destiny is absolutely still in your hands, and everything that you want is still in front of you. And we know ultimately, winning the division was good, but ultimately what the Bills want is home field advantage. It was a stated goal by Brandon Beane. He's openly talked about it. Sean McDermott's openly talked about it. The team has talked about having playoff games in Buffalo. And I do think that they talk about, the type of focus that they have going into the last few weeks, the types of practices that they have going in. I think all that stuff matters. I think they're hyper-focused on getting that. They know what this means analytically to being able to get that or not. If you lose this, you might as well rest guys and sit it out and wait for the playoffs because you're not going to get that 1 seed, right? So
they can't drop to the 4 seed. The worst that if they lose, they're pretty much locked into the 3rd seed, right? Because the Bengals would then have the tiebreaker over them. So if they lose, they might as well use week 18 as a bye. Absolutely. Or if they win, they'll use the wild card week as a bye. So either way, I think they're going to get a relative bye week,
some type of a bye.
Out of the
even if they don't sit everybody, they'll have to play some guys just the numbers game wise, and
you don't have enough on the roster to sit everyone.
But you would be able to get through with a lot of people. But to my point is, it's sort of an all or nothing. It's not a must win, but it's a must win if you're going to attain your goal. And I think that this team is so goal oriented and know what's in front of them that I don't know that anything's going to stop that train. But I think so. A slow first half, and I think you see a bit of scoring in bunches towards the end of that game. And I think it's going to come down right to the last minute where Greg and I's heart rates are a little bit elevated as we get on for a late Monday night post-game show. But I kind of hope for something like that it lives up to the hype of the primetime game, because too many times these ones don't live up to the hype when they're the only game on. So I hope it does, because that could be a lot of fun.
So I'm right in the same idea as you. I do think it's going to live up to the hype. I do think that it's going to be a incredibly competitive, exhilarating, exciting game. I actually think it's going to be a little more high scoring than you guys do. Mm-hmm. I've got it 34-31. I think the Bills win it, and I think it genuinely might be the Bills are down 31-27 with the ball last and go down to score a touchdown, or it's 31-31 and they're going down to kick a game-winning field goal. I do think this is a whichever team has the ball last kind of game. Both teams have quarterbacks capable of making those kind of plays. Mm-hmm. I think if you rank the kind of outcomes and you have like Bills close win, Bengals close win, Bills blowout win, Bengals blowout win, I think it's Bills close win, Bengals close win, then Bills blowout win. I think that it's possible, but I think the two most likely are a close win by either team And I do think that they're going to throw haymakers back and forth. I do think both teams are going to have playmakers, make big plays. I do think both fan bases are going to have frustrating moments in the game where it feels like the other team is taking control and doing everything they want to. And I can't believe
Dean Jackson's give up his like 8th reception. Everybody's pissed. Yeah.
And then Eli Apple does the exact same thing, and they get mad at Eli Apple for giving up the big plays. It's going to happen in both directions. But I do think that the Bills are the better team. I do think they can pull this out, and I do think they're going to prove that on Monday night that they are the team to beat going into the playoffs. And I'll take it one step further. I kind of think with Jalen Hurts getting hurt, and this game is actually the last game before AP writers submit their MVP votes, I think there's a chance Josh Allen puts on a show and at least makes it interesting. I think Patrick Mahomes is still going to win the MVP.
Yeah,
I don't think he can do so much. I do think Josh Allen is going to leap into second place and make it closer with Patrick Mahomes than what people are prepared for, where I think some people think it might be unanimous or a runaway. I think he still wins it. I think Josh Allen puts on a show, gets a win in Kansas City and in Cincinnati, and ends up pulling into a position where Josh Allen for MVP is going to be more of a discussion than people think.
I heard one of our friends from local WGR radio was pushing for Lamar Jackson.
I don't have time to explain how you mean the quarterback whose team has gone 3-1 without him.
I just have
that one. Yeah,
the fun world we live in on Twitter.
Yeah, God bless people who work in AM radio who have to come up with topics every day for multiple hours every day. God bless them. We've talked about it with our friend Joe Marino, which, hey, shout out to Joe Marino. I've got his book over my shoulder here. He was very, very kind to me and my family, wrote very nice messages in there for my nephew and for my parents and for lots of people. So shout out to Joe. Is very nice. But the same thing, I have no idea how Joe does a daily show. It's crazy. But on that note, we are going to wrap things up here for tonight. Big thank you to our producer, Chris Kepner. I know he's got a lot of stuff going on with the holidays, getting everything together here. I love the fact that we got to have both Glenn and Joe on. I think it was that was your idea. Credit to you, Aaron. That was a fantastic idea to have those guys on. And it was a really fun dynamic to have two of our most famous, brotherhood fan people to come on and to be able to go through that matchup. And now we're going to be ready for you guys here all the way through the game. We'll have probably some fun spaces going on Twitter.
I think Friday morning. The week's a little tough. My in-laws are here now. My mother's coming in town Friday, but there might be some time Friday morning for some spaces with Chris and I and other members of the Cover One gang. We're enjoying that a lot. So you'll see us there. And then obviously the slate of shows that we've produced here throughout the week here on Cover One Sports Network, and then you'll get led into the game by the Air Raid guys. We'll probably have a pregame show ahead for the game, and obviously the post game show will be a late night with Greg and I Monday night.
Real late, but we will be here for you. Make sure you're setting your reminders and your alarms, and I will take that moment now. Everyone, I didn't beg for it during the show. I've been begging for it every show. I beg you right now, before you depart, before you hit close, before you X out, give us a like. And if you have a moment, come back and make a comment in the show. That helps the algorithm too. If you give us your prediction for the show, come back in and give us what your score prediction is. Let us know if you think I'm an idiot and you think 34-31 is stupid. We've got a couple of Bengals fans who have been actually pretty cool in here. Rick has been in here with us most of the night talking about, he's not wrong, the Bengals have been playing ridiculously good. So if you can give us a comment in the comments here, let us know, Rick, what your prediction would be. Any Bengals fan who came on to listen to Joe Goodberry and all his good Bengals analysis, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a review. It means a lot to us. And anyone else who has a moment, I want to say thank you. We had a ton of people sign up for the Cover One Pass subscription here as a Christmas gift. We actually had some people think of it as a Christmas gift for other people. We had a couple people who Victoria, who works over at Store 716, got it for her father as a Christmas gift. I thought that was an awesome idea. So thank you to her and for thinking of that. And for anyone else who did sign up, if you haven't had a chance yet, it's a year-long subscription. So if you sign up now, it's going to carry you all the way through next season as well, into playoff time next season. So sign up. You get this awesome t-shirt. You get an awesome decal. You get all of our in-depth analysis. You get access to the Slack channel, which is fantastic. So if you have a chance to jump in there, there's a lot of good stuff. Aaron, any thoughts on the One Pass before we sign off?
Yeah, no, honestly, the Slack channel, I think I was saying this on the post game show, that in itself is worth the membership. And it's not just the access that you get to the content creators and stuff. I think the access to the actual members of the Slack community is just as valuable as anything we offer here at Cover One. Chris was a member of the Slack community. He's become a member of the team. Adam is another. It's just that we have a number of dudes that have. Yeah, Greg Tompsett was in there. That's how I found him. And it's just that it is a community full of people that really add to the experience as a Bills fan that you don't necessarily get on Twitter, and the types of conversations and the back and forth and the sharing of data and tweets and all that stuff. I think we've created a really cool community that I know for me makes me a smarter fan, a more informed fan getting into each week. A lot of my research that I'm doing is done within the Slack channel.
Yeah. It honestly, it's hard to beat people to the Slack channel for news. I mean, I'm like handcuffed to my phone sometimes, I feel like, and even I struggle to get from Twitter onto the Slack channel to share big news before it breaks. So if you want to just keep up with, big NFL news, big topics, breaking news for the Bills, analysis from anywhere, you can just stay in the Slack channel and get every big update that's there. So for some people who don't love Twitter and haven't been
or any of the
direction it's going, or any social media, you can go on Slack, have your own little Bills community, and get alerted to everything that comes up. So one of the best things that we can do here, the question that we got, how much is a membership per month? You can go through. I think our current deal is to sign up for it as an annual one for $57 for the whole year. Is our current deal, but that's something that we've done in the past, is done monthly ones, so something that we could consider. But you can look in the show description down here below. We have our memberships available in the link. So Zach, appreciate that very much. He just got our t-shirt, so shout out to Zach. Had just signed up in the past little while here, and our team got it out to them. So appreciate it very, very much. It means a lot.
Totally.
All right. Anything else for the people before we sign off?
No, man, that's it. Again, I hope I hope everybody survived this winter storm that we had. I hope that you're safe and warm, and that your families were safe and warm throughout the Christmas season here. I hope that you had a fantastic Christmas season, and I hope that we're celebrating a fantastic Buffalo Bills 2023 Super Bowl run here coming up. Greg, we've talked a lot about needing to play the right football at the right time, trending in the right direction at the right time. We spent about 2 months saying, trying to urge fans that when things weren't going well and we were slumping and things weren't exactly as we thought they would be, hey, we need to be doing it around Christmas time, is what I kept saying. Well, now's the time. Right here we are. There's never been a better time to be trending into playing your best football. And I think this is the weekend to really showcase what it's going to look like heading into the playoffs. Now's the opportunity to put on display for the whole NFL that this is the freight train that was talked about early in the spring as a Super Bowl favorite. They've never really wavered. I know Philly took over for a little bit, but they've been right there. Now's the time to show that you are that team. And hopefully they prove us right, that we've been talking to trend this way this whole time. Hopefully they prove us right here. And we have a early New Year's celebration, big time victory, a primetime victory that we can all get here and crack some jumbos together on Monday night, bud.
Woo! Preach. That's what we want to hear. It's what we want to see. And this Monday night is literally as close as you can get to a playoff game without being in the playoffs. So we are going to find out everything we need to know heading into the big dance. So on behalf of Aaron Quinn, on behalf of Chris Kepner, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.